What about stem cells? Now, we've had this scientific breakthrough of creating these pluripotent stem cells in adult cells. Do we still need federal funding for research? Would you still support that for embryo stem cell?
Well, keep in mind the way the stem cell legislation that was vetoed by the president was structured. What it said was you could only use embryos that were about to be discarded, that had been created as a consequence of attempts at in vitro fertilization. So there were very tightly circumscribed mechanisms that were permitted. I think that that is a legitimate moral approach to take. If we are going to discard those embryos, and we know that there's potential research that could lead to curing debilitating diseases, Alzheimer's, Lou Gehrig's disease, if that possibility presents itself, then I think that we should, in a careful way, go ahead and pursue that research. Now, if, in fact, adult stem cell lines are working just as well, then of course we should try to avoid any kind of moral arguments that may be in place. But I want to make a broader point, Pastor Rick, on an issue like stem cell research. I mean, it's not like people who are in favor of stem cell research are going around thinking to themselves, you know, boy, let's go destroy some embryos, right? I mean, that's not the perspective that I think people come to that issue on. I think what they say is we would not tolerate a situation in which, you know, we're encouraging human cloning or in some ways diminishing the sacredness of human life and what it means to be human, but that, you know, in narrow circumstances, you know, there is nothing inappropriate with us pursuing scientific research that could lead to cures, so long as you know, we're not designing embryos for that purpose.
We haven't been working with anybody who wants stem cells. We've just been working with people who want particular tissues. Like they want cardiac, or they want eyes, or they want neural, they want spinal cords. So, I mean, that sort of thing. Certainly everything gonads. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Gonads.
Yeah.
Everything we provide is fresh. We have a department that is focused on our abortion providers, and the head of that department is here, and I'm sure they have, you know, in essence at their fingertips, information about volume and second try versus first try and so on. And I think they would be the right people to explore whether affiliates are different.
You don't by any chance have on you like the PPFA guidelines on tissue procurement or anything like that?
There are no guidelines.
Not written?
Yeah, there are guidelines on research, but there are not guidelines on tissue procurement.
Okay.
And there will never be guidelines.
Oh. Just to keep it.
There's no guidelines. If something qualifies as research, if an affiliate wants to participate in a particular research study, there are guidelines that how that happens. If they're gonna, you know, participate in something like this, you know, there are mechanisms by which contracts can be reviewed and things like that, but there are no guidelines.
Deb gets requests, and I get requests about whether or not people should be working with. Well, the requests have been coming. We hear STEM Express.
STEM Express is the other one,
and should we work with them? Because Shasta Pacific, now Northern California, they work with them, and they're sort of vocal about it.
Yeah, STEM Express kind of has the whole north,
For the first few years that it happened, it was treated as research, and then we realized that was kind of overkill. Because we didn't have a particular IRB-approved study. It just didn't fit into our framework, and so we just kind of backed off of that.
I guess I'm talking even in terms of like compensation and stuff like that, just to...
Nothing is written.
Yeah.
There's nothing in stone.
We have independent colleagues who generate a fair amount of income doing this, and if they have a smaller
at the independent
don't
clinics,
have the ability to fundraise because they're not a nonprofit, that's not really helpful. So it's an issue you might imagine that we're not going to talk about
Yeah.
Folks will ask the national office questions, and we certainly have answers to the questions, but we don't have a policy per se. And that is by choice.
Yeah.
So for now, that's the way it will be.
Well, I think a congressional hearing scared the bejesus out of people 15 years ago when there was a congressional hearing on it. It turned out to be fraud. But
What was the front?
there was a person from the opposition that said Planned Parenthood had changed the way it does its procedures so that they can collect tissue so that they can sell tissue. Turned out that was false.
We've been very good at getting parts on liver because we know that. So I'm not going to crush that part. I'm going to basically crush below. I'm going to crush above, and then I'm going to see if I can get it out intact.
But it sparked a congressional hearing and some federal legislation, which is where some of that came from. So we just want to not have to repeat that.
Right.
And there are a lot of Planned Parenthood. There are Planned Parenthoods that participate in donation programs that are reimbursed for.